Reparación, ahora. Reparación. Reparations now. Trying to get my car in a minute if I keep.
Good afternoon and good morning, depending where you are today at this time as we gather. My name is Marianne Comfort, and I'm Justice Coordinator for Earth, Anti-Racism, and Women for the Sisters of Mercy of the Americas, based in Silver Spring, Maryland. And I'm so pleased to be part of the Interfaith Reparatory Justice Table that is presenting this latest webinar in our series, Connecting Our Faith to the Work of Reparations in all its forms. We're so grateful to have you join us for this important conversation today on the culture of repair and the 2024 elections. The program will be divided into two sections. First, an exploration of this notion of creating a culture of repair, which is a spiritual foundation for the work of reparatory justice. And then we'll be sharing some concrete steps we can take to bring this conversation to spaces where candidates for elected office are. To start it off, it's my great pleasure to introduce a colleague in this work, Antonia R. Coleman. Antonia describes herself as Bill's daughter and Joyce's heartbeat. She is an ordained, a vocal musician, and womanist theologian, and serves as the administrative project manager for the Office of Innovation and the Center for the Repair of the Historic Harms. Her work is informed by eco-womanism, widowhood, reparatory justice, and she finds rest and joy in her nieces and nephews, good food and laughter and community. For Antonia, there's comfort in sweet music, a good book, scrapbooking, a shaded tree, and the waves of Chicago's lakefront. And I know Antonia is going to be bringing all of that into the space with her. And so really welcome you to the space, Antonia.
Thank you, my friend and colleague, Mary Ann, for your introducing me. It's an honor and a privilege to be with you all today. So I'm tasked with first centering us. So we're going to take some quick breathing because your sister here is a little bit nervous, her darn self. Okay. So breathe with me. So we're going to breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in love. Breathe out hate. Breathe in joy. Breathe out fear. Breathe in excitement. And breathe out anxiety. Thank you for that and joining me with that. Thomas Chisholm wrote one of my favorite hymns that says, "Morning by morning's new mercies I see." Inspired by the text in Lamentations 3:22-23 that suggests that love that is steadfast and unending mercies and refresh every morning, great is that kind of faithfulness. And it is that kind of faithfulness that we as humans need to create and sustain a culture of repair. And we are fortunate today to have the Reverend Dr. Turner, Robert Turner, pastor of Empowerment Temple, with us today to have this much needed conversation. And it is done in tandem with the convening of the World Council of Churches at the United Nations third session of the Permanent Forum on People of African Descent in Switzerland. Now, whether the response is for a Zacchaeus text or the recovery of a stolen beam, the clarion call for culture of repair is being trumpeted by our guest today. The call for this work is granted by the power of daily refreshed mercies, as it is met with many weights that try to dismantle our progress. Friends and family, this work that we are doing is a marathon relay race and not a sprint. It is a daily refreshing of new mercies for the work to get done, not just for our benefit, but for the benefit of the future, with the commitment not ever to return to from whence we've come. And with that, we welcome my dear new best friend, Pastor Robert, Reverend Dr. Turner. Hey, welcome to the Interfaith Reparatory Justice Table of the National Council of Churches. I see you walking.
Hey, and thank you so much, my dear sister, for that kind introduction. Yes, I am walking. Been walking since 6 o'clock this morning, and have walked 30 miles already.
Oh my.
30 miles from Baltimore, and now I'm in College Park
Okay.
at University of Maryland. So I have at least 10 more miles to go.
And where are you walking to?
Walking to the White House.
You're walking from Baltimore, Maryland to the White House. Why are you doing that?
As I have done now this is my 19th time. I do this pilgrimage every month. I've done it 18 times from Baltimore to DC and did it once from Selma to Montgomery. That's actually 54 miles.
Oh my.
And all for the cause of reparations. Today I crossed over 800 miles walking for reparations to bring awareness and spiritually, as Joshua, we believe in the Old Testament, the Hebrew text, walked around the walls of Jericho 7 times, and the walls came tumbling down.
Come
For
on
consecutive days.
down, walls. Yes.
This walk this walk is that same spiritual effort that
Yes,
while
sir.
this walking may not seem like much to onlookers,
Mhm.
this paleo prophetic ministry of walking is what children of God do.
Mm.
And I'm humbled to be in the lineage of those such as Joshua, those such as Moses, who walked from Egypt to the promised land, Abraham before him walking from his homeland to Canaan. And the Holy Family who left Bethlehem to go to Egypt to,
Yes, sir.
to return. So this paleo prophetic ministry that we have, it may not seem like much to onlookers, but spiritually, it is powerful beyond measure when you walk by faith and not by sight. And while I've been doing this, we have all seen the true transformation and growth in the reparations movement. I started October of 2022. And since then, I mean, we've had monumental efforts in and around the nation and around the world for reparations for African descendants in the diaspora.
So is this your first engagement into reparatory justice, this walking from Baltimore to Maryland, or do you have a more extensive call narrative to reparatory justice?
Yeah, no, I've been a reparations activist, honestly and truly, since high school. I took African American history. I still remember my teacher's name, Mr. Harvey. And when I learned as a high school student, I mean, we being from Tuskegee, you know about slavery. I mean, I was born in the same hospital that the Tuskegee Syphilis study was done in. I live miles from Molden Field, where Tuskegee Airmen learned how to fly. I grew up in the same city Rosa Parks was born in. Went to George Washington College Museum to see the inventions he made and the tools he used to make them. I went in the Oaks where Booker T. Washington lived hundreds of times. So I knew our story, but to fully grasp the horrors and the trepidations of not just slavery, but white supremacy.
Hey, he's coming back. There he goes.
Not just from slavery, but from all the harm and horrors. I became an activist. I did work in college, did work in high school, did work in college at the University of Alabama. Speaking out, when we found out, a law school professor, Al Brophy, found out there were slaves buried on campus. I and two other students from the graduate school organized, and we had a memorial for them, and we called for reparations, a memorial for them and for the university to apologize. And that was the first time in the school's history that they apologized. The faculty senate, you can look it up, for their role in slavery. And I was featured on the Aaron Brown show then. And of course, as an adult, I had the good blessing to go to Oklahoma, Tulsa, Oklahoma, pastor historic Vernon Edmey Church, where the history wasn't fully known around the world about the Tulsa Race Massacre. So every week, I went out to City Hall by myself, often in the rain, sleet, hail, and snow, to let the whole world know. I mean, every week for 3 years, and that moment was very powerful and started the lawsuit that's still now being heard by the Supreme Court in Tulsa, in Oklahoma, state of Oklahoma. I spoke up to the mayor and got the Mass Grave Public Oversight Committee formed. The city council person who's been leading that effort in a major way, Vanessa Hall Harper, for a long time, is the one who actually passed the ordinance for it, and they're doing work right now for reparations. And now coming to Baltimore, just continuing on. I mean, I really only have two messages: Jesus and reparations.
Jesus and reparations. Oh my goodness.
And I believe Jesus spiritually was our reparations to the Father for the sins of the world. He paid a debt that he didn't owe.
Well, so
that I could be saved.
Ashe. Now we can definitely take this conversation into that trajectory, but I will need to add a B3 Hammond organ for you in order for you to continue
I'm
that.
going to the cross.
Right. So are you gonna go to the cross? Well, we're gonna dial it back because I got me with my head bobbling right here. But
Mhm.
let's circle back and thank you for sharing your call narrative, because reparations and reparatory justice to do this kind of work is indeed a call. But let's talk about everybody. Let's talk about this book right here. We're leading right into it,
Yeah.
and it's been read because I read it. A question from our dear colleague, Reverend Sakina Hamlin, and she asks, she says, we are very encouraged by the concept of creating a culture of repair. Now, given the United Nations Permanent Forum for People of African Descent's third convening this week, the letter sent by Haitian human rights lawyers regarding reparations for Haiti, continuing efforts within the Christian community to bring closer Africans and Africans in the diaspora, such as the AAD conference and the diaspora being the sixth region of the African Union. Her question is, how do you see the development of a culture of repair in the United States connecting with the Pan-African agenda and movement? And are there things in your book you ask Black leaders or congregations to do to facilitate this intentional connection?
I first of all love the question. I love it in so many levels, and it's so very relevant. Just today, walking to the White House, I meet a lot of people. Gatorade. I meet a lot of people. I'm gonna sit down and answer this. I meet a lot of people who um, have positive things to say and some negative. And today I met a brother who gave me his card. Matter of fact, and he is from Africa, and he invited me to Ghana because they're having a convening in Ghana for what you just mentioned. There is, unfortunately, a movement by some that's underwritten by conservatives to separate and parse out reparations agenda, to exclude our brothers and sisters of African descent. I do not support that. I categorically speak against that, and I've been attacked for my speaking against it. But the truth is just the truth. We are one people. I know we think we have arrived as a people, but in the words of James Baldwin, we are American with no benefits and African with no memory. And so I believe that it is our duty as leaders to remind our people of our African identity. Malcolm X, El Haj, Malik Shabazz said we are Africans trapped in America. In fact, we're still more African than we are American. And this country treats you unless you know that. And so why would we try to parse out a remedy that includes all of us? We were kidnapped from Africa. And our suffering did not stop in 1865. And our suffering really did not start in 1619. We started the clock too late. And yes, that is in the book. We started our clock for damages too late. We started at 1619 or 1526 when we landed on these shores, as if we had no wealth or no value before we got here. That by its nature is a white supremacist argument to say we only got value when we became chattel for the white man in America. No, we had value. We had more value in our homeland. So I think that the calculation starts wrong. The calculation starts with our labor here in this country, which was horrific, which was free chattel slavery for 300 years in this nation, right? But they did not kidnap slaves. They kidnapped kings. They kidnapped queens. They kidnapped craftsmen. They kidnapped artisans. They kidnapped nobles. People who were brilliantly smart. People who's not just the people that they kidnapped, right? So yeah, the people they kidnapped, they had lives. Pay us for that too. Not only that, but the people they kidnapped came from Africa, Kemet, Akabulan, the most resource-rich continent on the planet. The gold, the oil, today the cobalt that they're mining in the Congo, killing people over. All that, the diamonds, the pearls, the rubies, the uranium, the platinum, all of that it's our homeland. So imagine if we were able to have stayed in Africa, what our land value would be worth. Because unlike America, that you can own the land on top, the house on top, but have no access to mineral rights. In Africa, you own the land. We had our own system of what was yours and what was not yours. And we had a shared community of prosperity. So it doesn't matter if your family didn't own it personally. They didn't see it like that. If you were from that ancestry, from that lineage, from that tribe, you had an inheritance. The same thing with the 12 tribes. You have an inheritance based on the tribe you are a part of. So yes, I think that we must include our African brothers and sisters. And I think we should definitely start the clock earlier than 1526, 1619, and we should extend the clock past 1865 because Black suffering did not stop in 1865, and our damages did not start in 1619.
You mentioned that in the book. You definitely mentioned that part in the book, especially in the conversation with your delineation of what happened in Tulsa and how what happened in Tulsa mirrored in myriad other spaces, the Red Summer of 1919.
That's
so
right.
It's in the book, y'all.
And I want to commend you. I believe you're the first person who has read the whole book.
Yes.
I want to commend you for that. You are the first that I know of, cover to cover, besides myself. I read it because I wrote it. But you are the first person, besides myself, that has read the whole book, Creating a Culture of Repair.
Well, thank you for that.
I want to applaud you for that.
Thank you. I want you to, moving from systems, you talked about social, institutional, and spiritual reparations. And can you, after you briefly explain what each of those are, and I would like for you to share how should the responses be to those elected officials who ignore or turn a blind eye to the voices calling for reparations. Because, friends, how the book is set up, he has it where, there's the chapter and then there's this whole frameworking of what each of those reparations mean. And then there's a call to actions, just stacks of call to actions that follow. So could you please share briefly those definitions and what the responses to a lack of our calls?
Yes, I'll be honored to. So I start off in my introduction for the whole book, acknowledging the United Nations definition of reparations, right? And I talk about what they should include, all those variables and elements, right? But I'll break them down even further from not just, those categories that they mentioned, but I also delineate them according to individual repair, societal repair, and institutional and spiritual. Individual repair really is designed for those individuals who are fed up with the waiting on the government to do something. So they individually take action. And I list several things that individuals can do. Namely, one is naming their privilege. Just to admit that there is a such thing such as white privilege. To admit, not that your life is easy, but you have privilege as a white person in America. And that is undeniable if you look at history. Also, looking at your family history to see what role your family played in slavery, in Jim Crow, in upholding white supremacy. To know the truth, part of the dismay of genealogists or researchers is the fact that so much data about Black ancestry is lost because they did not keep good records of us because they consider us as chattel. They kept better records of their horses and cattle than they did the enslaved people who they consider chattel. So white families could help immensely in Black people today trying to reconnect to their roots by studying their own history and knowing what they did. Because we just call it Black history, but it's truly American history. And white folks were just as much as a part of Black history as Black people, because in large part, white folks were the ones who were oppressors, but they kept silent. The Tulsa Race Massacre, perfect example. Black folks knew it happened. White folks knew it happened, but white folks denied it for almost 100 years. They called it a myth. But traction began when white families started coming forth, and I've interviewed a few of them on my YouTube channel. They started coming forth, telling the stories that their granddaddies and grandmothers told them never to tell anybody, but it was haunting their soul. So they had to let it out. They had to share it. And I know Tulsa is no anomaly. That is ubiquitous for America. So I encourage my white brothers and sisters, don't just donate to the United Negro College Fund. Research your family history. Don't just donate to a mayoral campaign or gubernatorial campaign for a Black man. Research your family. How did y'all get so rich in the first place? And so that's another aspect of individual repair that white folks can do. The second one, the societal one, we have things that quasi-governmental agencies did. And I get to the government agencies and institutional repair. But you have, like the HOAs, homeowner associations. They put in their covenants throughout America that Black folks, and in some cases Jewish people, could not live in certain areas. And in a lot of places, that's still in the covenant. And people, our white liberal friends, are living in these subdivisions that have racially restrictive covenants. But they want to talk about how down they are for Black people. And some Black folks probably live in these same subdivisions now and don't even realize what's in their actual mortgage is a restrictive covenant that restricts Black people from living there. So societal repair, and this is just one example of among many in my book. Societal repair asks those organizations, those societal organizations, to make sure that they don't have any racially restrictive covenants. Thank God the Fair Housing Act of 1968 forbade and prohibited those racially restrictive covenants from being enforced, but they're still on the books. Take them off the books. Take them off the books. And there are several other examples that societies can do, communities can do for repair. But the one that's near to my heart, you can tell by the book that I spent a lot of my time in, is the institutional repair. And that to me is the truest form of repair, because that is governmental. That is governmental repair that this country, how you doing, owes to Black people. Period, point blank. And not just this country, but as you stated, sovereign nations within this country owe to Black people and internationally as well. And so that is where I actually call for the United States government to have an abatement on income taxes for Black people. In my book, you will see that. Right now it's tax season. One of the institutional forms of repair is that Black folks should not have to pay income taxes. You know why? Because we worked our ancestors over 300 years in this nation and never got any income. So why in the heaven should we have to pay income taxes to a country that still owes us? Because guess what? If I die today, my children got to pay my taxes. They got to pay my taxes. But guess what? Our great-grandmothers and great-grandfathers died, and the country owed them a refund check that they never got. So let my tax liability go against what the government already owes my ancestors for not paying them a penny when they had them work for free for over 300 years. And on top of that, I'm feeling myself now. On top of that, not only did they not get, our ancestors who were enslaved did not get paid for over 300 years, the ones who were free, they paid into a country that did not give them benefits. We paid taxes that built these public colleges and universities that we couldn't even go to.
Whoop.
We paid taxes to go to pay for elected officials to serve in office that vote to keep us segregated. We voted and we paid taxes. We paid taxes to a CDC that oversaw the Tuskegee syphilis study that watched us die and get sick. So we've been paying taxes, sales tax, property taxes, and never saw benefits of it. So we now today, a part of our repair, we Black folks should not have to pay any income taxes, at least for the same number of years that our ancestors were enslaved. And for the same number of years, we paid for a bifurcated system of segregation, Jim Crow, white schools versus Black schools, but Black folks did not get any discount on their taxes. In fact, we paid more for no services.
Now, Pastor, you about to make me go sit on and put you in A flat. I need you to come on, bring it back. And let's.
And that's just one of the examples of institutional reparations. And that doesn't even involve the government cutting us one check. And they should cut us a check.
Right.
But in addition to cut us a check, they should give us a tax abatement for the same number of years that our ancestors worked for free in this nation. And the same number of years that Jim Crow ran this nation.
And the spiritual reparations?
Spiritual reparations describes the role that the church, particularly the white church community, played in upholding, sanctioning, and in some cases promoting racism and white supremacy. They owe. I mean, they owe. Every white church you see built before 1865, in large part, was built by enslaved people. Period. Yeah. That's a fact. And they whitewashed church history.
Yes.
And that has had a diabolical effect on the minds of Black people. And it's just historically inaccurate. It's just period, point blank. It's historically inaccurate. So these white churches, they owe. And that's why a lot of them are not prospering, really impactfully in the community, because they got a sin stain on them. Big time. Big time.
Go ahead.
I mean, I can go on and on about all of them, but yeah. They definitely owe. And I'm a member. I'm a clergy person, but this is a conversation that the Church Universal needs to have in-house, from the Catholic Church, who the first slave ship was the good ship Jesus, and the Catholic Church actually upheld slavery, looked the other way, and upheld it. And every historically white denomination in America allowed for the theology of racism to reign. Now, in some cases, they split over it, like the United Methodists, the Baptists, they split over it. But they never went on the affirmative, affirming like what they're doing right now. They never affirmed Black identity. Never. They just split, but they split with no affirmation of why. They just said, well, we don't support slavery. But you cannot support slavery and still think the enslaved people are not equal to you. And they had theologies like the curse of Ham that's also incorrect. They taught in seminaries. I mean, some of the leading slave owners were theologians.
Yes, sir.
Jonathan Edwards. I mean, they were slave owners. They owned people.
Yes, sir.
And
Yes,
so they owned.
So tying that into this election cycle of 2024, you said in your book, reparations benefit not just the oppressed, but also the oppressor. Because of the fact that reparations and, repair has such a negative connotation, there are people who are resistant to the words as if they're allergic to it, reparations and repair, for myriad reasons. I think the statement is by Matthew Schlemm. And my question is, and you pose it in the book, how do you think the United States will be different for people of all races after reparations are made? And how can we, and I add, how can we start that with this election? You're on mute, friend.
For one thing, as a pastor, I can't tell you the number of times that I have seen people experience cathartic spiritual enlightenment after confessing and repairing sin. And that's on an individual basis. This country, as great as she is, has not become her true self, because this country has yet to do right by the folks she first did wrong. America's original sin, or her original sin, was that of white supremacy, that of enslaving people. And she has never atoned for that. So one of the things that providing reparations could do on a spiritual level is bring enlightenment and credibility, because the whole world knows America is the chief racist in the world. The chief racist. We invented our own version of slavery in this nation. Everywhere else, slavery was tied to a person. And you work that off and you're free. America made slavery tied to a race and created it. Because really, biologically, there ain't but one race, the human race. But America tied it to the color of your skin. And that not only hurt the people, but it hurt America. So America is hurting spiritually and financially, because America tried to uphold two systems and still tries to uphold two systems. America, you said, we saw it after the integration. Before integration, people had no problem paying taxes, especially the public schools. But as soon as Black children were able to partake in public services, that's when all sorts of public funding started to dry up, because people no longer wanted to have their tax dollars go. Matthew Desmond, in his book, Poverty by America, talks about that. How when Americans pay taxes, white Americans pay taxes, they see it as being given a handout to black people. Now, they didn't mind the handouts going to white folks, but they don't want their tax dollars going to support anything that black folks can benefit from. So as a result now, we are in debt by the trillions. And guess who owns a lot of our debt? China. China. So not only spiritually and morally credibility reparations will give to America, but it will be financially beneficial for America. We saw how the COVID relief money was a stimulus for the economy. Can you imagine what giving reparations could be for this country? That would be astronomically great for our GDP. So those are a few examples of how it could be good for America. I think the last question you asked was about elected officials.
Mhm.
Can you restate that for me, please?
That came out the air.
Oh,
That came out the air. But I've made an allotment for a possible conversation about an electoral process
oh,
with our
yeah.
good friend Jared Smith, who'll be coming on shortly. But I
Okay.
just want to say to you, when you talked about support for Black seniors, my grandmother, Mary Elizabeth Palmer, God rest her soul, and I speak her name, she was instrumental as a young woman getting the Social Security Act into place. And she remembered before her death in January 2005, she remembered all the things that she was supposed to get after paying into the Social Security Act and all the money that she never got.
Mama.
All the money she never got. She was forced to live on $800
Mama.
a month.
That's real.
She was forced to the medicines. We had to buy her medications at five pills a week for different issues. The food that she was promised to have access to by living in government assisted housing, because in her mind this was due to her, and these were the things that she worked for as a young girl for the Social Security Act. So to see you on pages 87 and 88 bring that to light did something for my heart, and it almost brings me to tears, because I remember the suffering that my grandmother endured and the suffering that my mother and my brother and I did in trying to keep and sustain her. But we couldn't, and we ran out of money, and we all went into debt trying to keep my grandmother well, until she decided to take the trip to the other side. So that particular I am going to take license and say that was an inspirational download you received from my grandmother to put that into your book. And for that, I am grateful, so that when there are other folks who get to be her age, hopefully that I will not live that life that she had. And with that, thank you. And I turn it over to Jared. Hey, Jared.
How you doing?
All right. How are you?
That
And
was excellent. Good to see you, good brother, Reverend Turner. I want to congratulate you on this book. It's a great achievement. So, you talked a little bit about the 2024 election, and I'm a lobbyist at Network Lobby for Catholic Social Justice. I've met you on a number of occasions in front of the White House during some of your great walks. But we have an opportunity to have those folks that are running for office, including the president President Biden and folks in the House and the Senate to make reparations a part of the platform, a part of getting folks to come out to vote, a part to hold people accountable. So, you know, our friend Howard, our Cam Howard is he has an initiative that is calling on the president to file an executive order creating a reparations commission that is identical to HR 40. Do you have any suggestions? Have you thought about what is the best way for people to go into candidate forums, town halls, and start talking about reparations with candidates on a weekly, monthly basis, so we can make this issue as important as it should be?
Yeah. First of all, thank you, Jared, good brother, for that question. And I agree. In fact, Cam walked with me, and the picture that's on the postcard is actually the wreath that I carry. I'm carrying another one right now and lay at the fence of the White House. We have to, and I've said this several times now, make reparations issue number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 for Black America. We need to look at, and not just Black people, but anybody of goodwill, as Dr. King would say. If you believe that America's biggest stain is racism, then you ought support reparations, period. If we had one election cycle for Black people and those who of goodwill say the only issue in the campaign season we're going to focus on is reparations, and that's it. Such as other groups, my other good friends who advocate for issues, they advocate singularly focused, right? I used to work for immigration rights in Alabama. That was the only issue. We wanted immigration rights, right? My brothers and sisters who have other things they advocate for, it's only one issue they ask for. Because we're so kind-hearted, we like to, mention everything when they come, or mention nothing at all, and just so happy that the elected officials come to our churches or our meetings. We are so happy they show up, but we never ask them for anything. So I've let it be known to any candidate who wants to come to Empowerment Temple. I don't give endorsements, first of all. I don't do that. But secondly, I got one issue I'm going to ask you about, and that is reparations. And to give them cover is already a part of the Democratic Party platform. It already is. Now, whether or not the candidates who run it in the primary support it is what we have to find out. But we do have one political party in America that has reparations as a line item on their platform that the party supports. And we in America only have 2 major parties. So we have one party that has it as a platform principle that they support. We need to make sure every candidate that comes seeking our vote, and I agree, attending their town hall meetings, especially if you're having fundraisers, they ask you for money, you ask them for their support on this issue. If you live in a city or state, definitely we all live in the same nation on this webinar, that has not formed a commission, then that'll be question number 1. And not back down and not take any, as my daddy would say, wooden nickels, for an answer. Stand firm and raise your question. Just like everybody else raised questions about their issues, we got to raise questions about ours.
So, you've seen three of the major states now with a reparations commission. At least California and New York are moving in the right direction. Illinois, I think they're still trying to get it together. What ideas do you have so we can get more states like Maryland? Maryland's tried, it's failed. Uh, you know, Minnesota, you would think that that would be a natural place where you could have a reparations commission. What ideas do you have that we can start moving in the states? Because if you got two big major or three major states already, on the books have reparations commissions, and our friend and brother Dr. Ron Daniels is on the commission in New York.
Yeah.
A great mentor, leader. What other ways can you think of that we can get that same type of movement in the general assemblies in the states?
I think that we have to look at it from two angles. I support commissions. I'm walking right now to the White House, so that'd be HR 40 passed. But I also, for those who believe that they don't need a commission to study everything, there's some things we do know. By Dr. Turner's book, and you'll see. I support not only the commission model, but the action model, right? So you can walk and chew gum at the same time. Right now, we have seen the commission model, and it is a longer process. It's a longer process. Some of my friends who are in the state legislature here in Maryland, they, in large part, are ready to just act on an initiative. And Maryland actually has already passed a funding source for reparations. They're using cannabis tax dollars, and they're giving funds to communities most impacted by incarceration of drug-related crimes. And so the city of Baltimore has already is forming their commission. Other cities throughout the state are forming theirs to actually go ahead and start putting money in the hands of these local communities to give out for reparatory ideas. The state of Maryland still should, and I support that statewide commission. But in the meantime, in between time, if we have elected officials who are like, okay, I see the commission model is one way, but I believe we already know what Black Marylanders need. Let's just pass this and put money into their hands. As long as reparation is done, I'm not mad at it. But what we must do, though, we must do something. We have to do something. And I'm happy you pointed out Maryland. Maryland has arguably more Black in their state legislature than any other state in America. So if Maryland can't get a state commission, we really messed up. We really messed up. So that's been my fight. That's been my angst. And we have a Black governor that I support.
Exactly. Yes.
And I believe wants to do the right thing. But we have to, and when I decided to take the activism route versus the elected route, we have to, because elected officials, for the most part, are thermometers. They reflect the temperature. They give the people what they want. That's what they do. They reflect the temperature. They are the thermometers. Activists, community leaders, we're like thermostats. We change the temperature.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it's past time for us to make it a little more hot.
Yes. Turn up that heat.
We got to turn the heat up.
Yeah.
We got to turn the heat up.
Yeah.
We got folks who are too comfortable in positions in the house, folks too comfortable in the house that we built and paid for. We put them in the house, and they're getting a little too comfortable. So now it's time for us to turn the heat up.
I agree 1000%. With us having a Black governor here in Maryland, you would think that that a reparations commission or going straight to reparations, because with the issues with the HBCUs in Maryland, all that data is there, right? So where to start and the harm that Black folks have suffered in Maryland. I would love to see the governor, in his State of the State speech, to say it's time.
Yeah.
That there should be a move in the next session of the General Assembly, that we should see some type of legislation to move this issue forward.
That's right. I agree. That would be a beautiful sight to see, but it won't happen without a mandate from us.
Exactly. Yes.
It won't happen without a mandate from us. Even though it's the morally right thing to do, we find out people sometimes care more about politics and politics than they do morality.
Amen.
It's just a sad fact.
Amen. So, there are some other bills out there in the House and the Senate. Barbara Lee has her, what is it? It's Con Res 44. What do you think? I mean, these aren't actual legislation that, has the weight of Congress behind it. It's more of a resolution, just, speaking about, how or what Congress thinks about, affirming studies for reparations. Do you have any opinion on these con resolutions rather than actual law that would bind the country?
Yeah, I mean, resolutions 30 years ago were great. They were statements, and they still have some utility now. But I would much rather see an actionable bill with the budget attached to it.
Exactly.
But I mean, I get it. I am not an elected official. It's hard for this Congress to decide who's going to be his own leader, right? So I get it. I mean, it'll be hard for them to vote on the bill to decide what kind of water they're going to drink in the White House. So resolutions are low hanging fruit. But then again, as an activist, we should not be satisfied with mere resolutions. It's our job to be the thermostats and put heat. That's why, one of the reasons why I walk every month from Baltimore to the White House, to let them know I will not get distracted by March Madness. I will not get distracted by Super Bowl. I will not get distracted by the holy season of Lent, nor resurrection, nor Advent. We must keep our feet on the gas. If they can keep their knee on our necks, then we definitely should be able to keep our feet on the gas.
Excellent. Last election, President Biden said that he supported a HR 40, but we haven't seen any action from him. Do you think it's time that, whether it's a White House briefing, whether it's a town hall, that folks, reintroduce that question and, to get the president to, tell us how he feels and what is he actually going to do?
Yes, and I like Joe. I got a picture with him when I was 21 years old.
Oh, wow.
We both a lot younger. But we have to stop allowing people we put in office. Now, when he was the senator from Delaware, we didn't put him in office pretty much. It's not that many of us in Delaware. But Black folks, especially in South Carolina, put Joe Biden in office. And they always criticize Republicans in the House and in Congress for being afraid of Donald Trump. But we have too many Democrats afraid of Donald Trump as well. And we need to make sure. Can you still hear me?
No, I can hear you, but I lost your video.
Yeah, my battery's going low. We need to make sure. I'm about to get my phone back in the charger.
Okay.
We need to make sure that we remind the president, governors, and congressmen who put them in office. And they can't criticize Republicans for being afraid of Donald Trump, and they're afraid of him too. So they don't speak out on issues like reparations. If they really support it, if they support it, they cannot speak about it if they're afraid to vote about it, or even call to vote, or protest for the vote, like they do for other issues that they care about.
So, let's talk a little bit about the 119th Congress. It's going to be upon us before we know it. It looks like our good brother, Leader Hakeem Jeffries, will be Speaker. Do you think that we should ask Brother Jeffries to bring HR 40 to the floor within the first 100 days of the 119th Congress for a vote?
Yes. Short answer is yes. Otherwise, I know people say, well, let's wait, let's do other things. Why are we in office if we're afraid to do the right thing? They told Dr. King to wait on integration. Let's wait for another time. We got to do other things first. Why are you in office? As the brother told Queen Esther, perhaps you were put in position for such a time as this. And Joe Biden, Hakeem Jeffries, my frat brother, perhaps you were put in office for such a time as this. Nobody but God could orchestrate the chaos that will lead to Hakeem Jeffries being Speaker of the House. Nobody but God. This is a divine move, an answer to prayer. And if we allow this moment, this Kairos moment of having Joe Biden as president, of having potentially a brother as Speaker of the House and control the Senate, and we do not do right by God's children who've been oppressed over 400 years, we don't deserve to be in power again.
I agree 100%. I think that is, the way that we should start looking at the 119th Congress. It's not just about the town halls. It's not just about the candidate forums. It's about how do we hit the ground running and making sure that HR 40, Representative John Conyers' baby, becomes a reality.
That's right.
We've gone way too long reintroducing this piece of legislation and not getting a vote. I mean, we need a debate on this bill as soon as possible. And I think in the 119th Congress, the first 90 days, that's possible. And I look forward to working with you, Dr. Daniels, Howard, Cam Howard. I don't know why I keep calling him Howard. Cam Howard and others that are part of our coalition to make that happen, because it doesn't make any sense, like you've said, that we have not seen something as simple as a study at the federal level. Federal government studies stuff every day, pays for these studies that many of us don't even know what they're really about, their impact. And that happens in our name every congressional term. And it doesn't make any sense that we can't have a study on HR 40, the history of Black folks in this country.
Amen.
So today, you are.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll tell you what.
I'm sorry. I thought someone was talking to you, Reverend Turner. So today you're going to be at the White House. Can you tell us what the ETA is and what you want folks to know when finish up this walk?
Today, in commemoration of the massacre at Fort Pillow, where on this day in 1864, 300 Black Union soldiers were massacred at the hands of the Confederacy after they surrendered. So the Confederacy violated the engagements of war. They massacred 300 Black Union soldiers, left the other white Union soldiers alive, and they never got reparations at all. And it's personal for me because the massacre at Fort Pillow inspired Blacks to sign up even more to serve in the Union Army, and inspired the Union Army in their battle, and they eventually win. As we know, the Battle of Gettysburg was final. My mother's side of the family, her maiden name is Birdsong. Her great-great-grandfather served in the Union Army and was from Tennessee and fought in the Civil War. Thank God he didn't die in the massacre. He probably was around that area, being from Tennessee, and they charged my phone up. And so today I am walking to the White House in their honor on the anniversary of that massacre that most people don't even know about. And when I get to the White House, I'm gonna lay this wreath down that I'm carrying with me now, of 400 roses, symbolic 400 years of oppression. Got my phone charged up now. This is the wreath that I'm carrying. I don't know whether you can see it.
Yep, we can see it.
And I just sat down for the first time in like 20, 25 miles. So my feet are killing me. When we get there, we're going to lay the wreath down, we're going to pray, and going to read the scripture and come back to Baltimore. Drive. We're not walking back to Baltimore. We're going to drive back to Baltimore and pray and continue to hope and trust that God's will be done and reparations be given to all God's children. And that's what this is my 19th time. And on today, I've crossed over 800 miles walking for reparations.
Excellent. Just incredible. Reverend Turner, can you just tell us once again the title of the book? Is it already out yet? So, and can people pre-order it on Amazon if it's not out?
It's able to be pre-ordered.
Okay.
And you can pre-order it now. Some people have already gotten it now.
I know. I didn't get a copy.
Listen, they only gave me 20 in the box. So, but I just ordered some more. That should be in next week. I got a few events at the church that I'm going to be having book signing for. And I'm excited. It's my first solo book. It's the longest list of reparatory ideas from an individual. Over 100 ways of repair. Now, California Task Force got me at 125. Mine is at, but there was like 50 people on that committee.
Exactly.
You know, but mine is more than 100 because the editors just wrote it as 100, but within each one are several other suggestions. But I'm thankful that God blessed me with the ideas that's presented there, and I hope that it truly is used as a conversational tool, as a guide for politicians, for people who say, well, what is reparations? What are you talking about? You know, this is something, you know, California's was for California. This is for the whole nation.
Exactly.
It's something that can be applicable and tied to every city, every county, every state, and for this nation.
Excellent. I just want you to know we put a link in the chat. So
thanks, brother.
Pre-order, okay?
Thanks so much.
It's always good to see you, good brother.
Same here.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks so much to Reverend Turner for his good work. And we're going to provide a few practical examples. I'm going to bring in Brian Frederick Gray of the Christian Church Disciples of Christ at this point, as well as Thaddeus Elliott from the United Church of Christ to give us some additional practical action items that we can take coming out of this webinar.
in the interfaith and ecumenical spirit of this meeting, I actually want to lift up one of the resources that comes from Network. Jared, I don't think you knew that I was going to do this. Really grateful for the work that Network Lobby does. Happened to be in Washington, D.C. last week as a part of a public theology fellow tour that is arranged through the Wesley Theological Seminary. And while we were there, they shared with us this wonderful resource that Network Lobby has put together called the Equally Sacred Checklist. Hope folks are going to be able to find this. We'll make sure that we include the link here in the chat for you. The Equally Sacred Checklist is a way of talking about how our values as people of faith should be informing the ways that we are voting at the ballots and should be informing the ways we are having conversations in this political season as well. And it doesn't do it in the way that you might think about endorsing particular candidates or about naming particular legislation that you need to vote for or against. Instead, it's organized in the ways that our faith calls us to live in the world. And each one of those then has 3 or 4 examples about I will support a candidate who. It's not naming names. It's not naming specific issues. So that if you have someone in your community of faith who is one of those we can't talk politics here in the church kind of people, this is a really powerful tool for getting folks to instead see that, no, we're talking about our faith. We're talking about how our faith is lived out in the world. We're talking about how our faith informs our actions and our decisions. It is a beautiful and brilliant tool, and dare I say, something that can be copied and replicated in your own community as well. So maybe the language is a little bit different in your community. Maybe the particular values that you're lifting up might be a little bit different, but the template exists there for this really powerful way for us to be able to share, for us to be able to live in a tangible way, taking our faith into this political season and into elections that are coming. Thank you to everyone at Network who has put that together. And thank you for everyone who is going to be putting their faith into action this political and election season.
Thank you. That was so kind. I will make sure folks at Network that we all worked on this receive those very kind words. Thank you.
Thaddeus, I'd invite you to give us a call to action.
Alrighty, so hello everyone. It's been an honor and a privilege to be able to kind of wrap us up and continue the movement towards creating a culture of repair. This election season, as noted before, gives us the opportunity to really put in the elected leaders, but also looking at opportunities at the state and local level when it comes to specific ballot initiatives, local laws, ways that we can implement some of these practical forms of reparations. And so to do that, as good citizens, one of the first things we can do is all check our voter registration, check who are our elected officials running at every level. Like, this is a presidential race, but it's not the only race. It's not the only question that will be on your ballot. I will drop in the chat the United Church of Christ, like many of our other faith partners who are on the call. We do our own civic engagement and election education and mobilization campaign called Our Faith, Our Vote. And we actually have a civic action center where you can plug in your information and it will tell you the status of your voter registration in your locality, but also who are your senators, your congressional district, your state's senators and legislatures, all the way down to local level government. So that's a great tool to be able to know what districts you're in, and then be able to check out the candidates coming up for election, and then going even further down into looking at their positions around reparations, knowing when the town hall, when they'll be making appearances, when they'll have their meet and greet. So you know those opportunities and know who to go to ask the questions to really ascertain, does this person align with our values? does this ballot measure align and lead to a culture of repair? And knowing then, how do we make sure we get the right people in place, the right policies in place, the champions in place, and following up with them once they're in office, checking the voting record, seeing what they said. Did they take the opportunity when it presented itself? So then when we come around again in the next election cycle, and prior to that, we're still holding our elected officials accountable. We're still raising our voice. We're still being the thermostat that's changing the temperature and applying the heat when it needs to be applied, and then cooling it down when it needs to be cooled down. So I encourage you all to go to our resources on the NCC site that Keith had posted in the chat earlier. Also check out our Civic Action Center to check your voter registration status, look up any new changes to voter laws in your area, when are registration deadlines, new ID changes, and share this information with your friends, with your neighbors, with your communities, your fellow parishioners and worshipers and your faith communities. It takes all of us to be trusted, informed sources of information, not only for ourselves, but unto others, and make sure we're encouraging others to vote their values, to vote not just against something or fighting or always defending, but voting for the vision, the new world that you want to see, the future that you want to make a reality for yourselves and our children and generations to come.
Thank you, Thaddeus, for that. So folks, take action, know where you're supposed to vote, know what the issues are, get to those town halls, get to those election events, and ask people about reparations, what's going on, not just in the nation as a whole, but also in your community. There's a number of local communities that are doing work on reparations. So this is definitely something you can build up, bring up with town council candidates, mayoral candidates, etc. So bring it up. As we come to a close here, I'd like to invite Reverend Turner back, if he's still with us, and see if he could close us with prayer, given the nature of him walking. I don't know if he's still connected and listening to us or not. And I'm not hearing him. So I'm going to go ahead and close us with prayer, if that's all right with everybody. Really grateful to have you all join us today and take this prayer as you're going out, as your benediction. As we sit in this space, may God enliven us, provide us the energy to walk the walk of repair, to continue to transform the world around us, to transform our communities, and to seek justice for all, and to continue to heal our hearts and heal the wounds of the past, the present, and the future. We give thanks in all this to God. Amen. Thank you, everyone. And just to let you know, this webinar will be up on YouTube later on. So if you have friends that didn't get a chance to tune in, feel free to share the link. We'll send the link around via email later on. Thank you so much, everybody, and have a good afternoon.